Welcome, everybody. I am Jesse Mogul, and thank you for tuning in to the American Contingency Podcast. Here at AmCon, we are a united nationwide community of dedicated Americans ready to face any challenge that comes our way. Our mission is to inform you by equipping you with the knowledge and training you need to prepare for any human-made or natural disaster. Through active participation in your community here at American Contingency, you'll have the opportunity to grow by learning from others' experiences and sharing your own. Together, we build resilience and strength through shared knowledge and mutual support. And as always, it is an honor and a privilege to have you here for the next 30 minutes or so. I'm still tweaking the new intro. For those of you who listen linearly, you'll notice that we are switching it up a little bit. Our old motto, inform, equip, and train, is now shifted to our newest one, which is prepare, grow, and share. And I really feel like this gets at the heart of what we are about. We want to help you prepare. We want you to grow as somebody who's not only seeking to prepare, but grow as a leader in your home, in your family, in your community. Grow in all of the personal development and growth ways one would seek to achieve in a life where it does seem like the world is just a slightly off its axis. And of course, we want to share. That's why we created the website and the platform in there that allows everybody to post and contact and communicate with one another. That's why we are so ramped up and amped up about the AmCon Adventure Challenge, where we get everybody an opportunity to take the things that they've learned in the preparing and ways that you've grown, and then come together and do these in the AmCon Challenge so that you can share what you've learned and what you've been able to adapt into your own way of life. Because these regions that we have, while there are 6 of them, they're huge and we are vast. And so there's the north, the northeast, the northwest, the south, the southeast, and the southwest. And even states within those regions can often be very different, and what they might need versus a state, just a couple borders over might be very different. And when we get everybody together in the American Contingency Adventure Challenge, it gives you guys an opportunity to share with one another ways that you have personalized all the different tasks and skills that we ask of you to learn so that you can compete in the challenge. So if your region is yet to do that and you are an active member of American Contingency, I highly recommend that you reach out to your regional coordinator, and they will be able to make sure that you talk to your state coordinator and your more localized coordinator to make sure that you're able to go to the in-person trainings and you are prepared for the American Contingency Adventure Challenge in your neck of the woods. I know ours here in the Southeast, it's in my calendar. Everything goes in the calendar, so I don't need to remember what date it's on, but I know ours is in October, and I'm looking forward to going out there and being a part of that. So enough of that admin stuff. One of the things that we always strive to do here at American Contingency is to grow the membership. We believe that we have provided a tremendous amount of value through the communication boards that we have on our members only site, to the trainings that we are continuously adding, to the blogs that I write, to this podcast. Everything that we're doing, we seek for it to bring a substantial amount of value. And of course, we can't necessarily control how much value you experience from what we do. But we do take a lot of feedback about what it is that we've done and the way that people have interpreted the trainings and the blogs and things of that nature. And we attempt to make it universalized so that everybody can gain a value and a sense of learning, but also that desire to act upon what you've learned. And there are, thousands upon thousands of members in American Contingency, and making you all happy every single second of the day is not going to be something that's possible any more than if you got 20 people in a room and everybody spoke their opinion on their favorite political party and you all liked the same political party. Would you all agree on the reasons why you like the same political party? So it's very mindful of us all to realize that when we communicate with others, that there is going to be differences of opinions. There's going to be different ways that we perceive the world around us, and it's all going to be very subjective to our own personal perspectives based on the culture we were raised in, the morals, ethics, values, opinions, and beliefs that were accepted or rejected in our family when we were growing up, our primary caregivers, and anybody else that was around us for a substantial amount of time when we were younger, and really beginning to develop who we are. And then, of course, as you became more of an adult, your own life experiences and perhaps rearing your own family, your courses that you took in your academia, all of these things are going to combine to create the you that is now either seeking to become a member of American Contingency or is a member of American Contingency. And the more we seek to grow AmCon, the more we realize that people with differing levels of education and socioeconomic background and opinions and what they believe to be the facts about the world around them are going to change. And it's where you have no choice. It's going to grow. Mike Glover did a video on YouTube. It was a while ago, but not so long ago, where he actually discussed how we have to learn to accept people in AmCon who don't necessarily always agree with everything that we say, and realize that there are going to be people in this tribe, in this group, that we may not necessarily be tremendously fond of, but at the same time we embrace as members of American Contingency, as people with a shared traditions and beliefs and values. And I think in this day and age, when vitriol and spite and anger seem to be the knee-jerk reaction as soon as somebody disagrees with us, it's even more important that we treat each other with care and empathy and respect, and allow that person to show us their true character through their actions and through the things that they say, and realize that somebody might disagree with me on their favorite college football team, but at the same time care very deeply about something else that I also care a lot about. And that I'm not asking somebody to agree with everything I say. I'm asking them to respect what I have to say, like I will respect what they have to say. And just because you listen to somebody's differing opinion or belief system about something you care deeply about doesn't mean you condone what they're saying. It just means that you're providing the autonomy to that person to share with you more about them. I think we forget that in this day and age, just listening to somebody else's opinion doesn't mean that we agree with it. It doesn't mean that we condone what it is that they stand for, but it does mean that we are providing them a space to share, and we hope that they provide us an equal space to share, where we can not even part ways as friends, because that just seems like a rude way to say it. What's another one? Agree to disagree. It's like, let's just agree that we're both different humans, and that if one of us was raised in an inner city and the other one was raised in, the foothills of the Smoky Mountains, we're going to have very differing ideas of what the world is all about. If nothing else, just our environment will have created different skills and different capabilities in us. And when we continue to grow American Contingency, and make no mistake, we will continue to grow this, and with the value that we bring, it is such an exceptional rate too. Right now, if you're listening to this linearly, anywhere between less than $10-12 gets you a monthly membership and access to our entire community, where you get to share with like-minded people who care about things that you care about, or we wouldn't be here in American Contingency. And while we believe that the rate that we charge to access this tremendous community is fair, we're always looking for ways to increase the value to you. And if you have ideas about that, then by all means, go to your local or your state or your regional coordinator and discuss that with them, and bring those to us so that we can then, figure out how many other people are feeling similar to you, and then we can start to grow ourselves, because the more we grow, the more we will need to grow to accommodate those that we've introduced to American Contingency and that have joined. And this is a great follow into what really this episode is all about, which is that ability to talk to your loved ones, talk to your friends, and talk to your neighbors about American Contingency and why this stuff matters to you so much. In a world where people can throw labels around willy-nilly and then immediately generalize somebody's behaviors or thought process or actions as being this, that, or the other for the simplification of not really having to put any time into actually getting to know that person. And I'm really thinking about the word preppers here whenever I say that kind of statement. When we think preppers, there's that show on the Discovery Channel or the History Channel that was popular not too long ago. I'm pretty sure it was called Preppers, and it was showing the people with these elaborate underground bunkers. And by all means, if you have one of those, props to you, because I'd love to have an underground bunker. Sometimes I would love if the world would just stop and I could just hide from it. And I'm telling you, I feel like an underground bunker would be a damn good place to pull that off. But unfortunately, society may have these very negative connotations around preppers and around people who want to get prepared and around the idea of just being prepared and preparing. And so I want to discuss today how you can begin to introduce to people in your first, second circle what American Contingency is all about and helping them become prepared. Because as we grow, right, and again, we believe we offer a pretty great value. I believe that the amount of members we have stands up to that statement. Also, we believe that we bring it in at a very affordable rate. Definitely cheaper than, Hulu with no commercials or even Netflix. But the amount of money that we ask to join per month, or the amount of value that we bring, all of that aside, let's just parking lot that for a moment. A part of you cares about preparation. A part of you, this means a lot to you. And to some of you, it's not even a part of you. It is literally your entire essence. It is your being. You don't have nuances of wanting to be prepared. It is your living, breathing experience of the world around you. And when we go to talk to people about this, it's going to be very advantageous for us to make sure that we meet other people where they're at. Because if you find somebody who doesn't even understand why it's important to have, a bathtub, ring, I don't know what to call this thing. Tom introduced it to me a long time ago. We got one in our garage, but it's very easily accessible. But anyways, I call it, in a way, it's sort of like a bathtub condom, because it's like you put it inside the bathtub and you fill up the bathtub with water, but instead of it touching the basin of the bathtub, which is probably not always as clean as you would prefer, instead it goes inside this rubber silo so that you can have all the water that you need. And explaining to somebody why they would want to have that, or 3 gallons of water per person per day, or having some food storage that didn't require them to open up their refrigerator or freezer and be able to cook it on a campfire stove or something like that. If to somebody who's done very little to no preparations, or doesn't really feel like they've ever reached a calamity that has required that kind of forethought, if you attack them and make them feel stupid or silly for not having done this, you're immediately closing down an opportunity to share really important knowledge with someone who could one day really wish they knew that. And whether they can make it to you or not in a state of despair, do you really want them knocking at your door if you've got all of your provisions rationed for those who are already in the house? And now you've got to add another 1, 2, 4, 7, 10 mouths to rations that you had prepared for 4 people. So let's discuss how we would bring food and water storage, or home security, or mobility, medical preparedness, and essential documents. Because when I bring this up, that I work for American Contingency, that I write the blogs, that I do the podcast, people inevitably have questions. And they're not the ones I thought, like, oh, isn't that just a prepper community? Or didn't I hear that you guys are homeland security threats and terrorists? No, that's not what people ask at all. The tendency is how am I not prepared? I got asked that today. Well, how am I not prepared? Literally, when I told them about American Contingency, they're like, interesting. So can you tell me how I'm not prepared? I'm like, well, you'd have to answer some questions. And so 3 or 4 minutes into it, I got some pretty rudimentary questions out, because I wasn't expecting this conversation. And I got some really great answers from them that were then able to help me point them in ways that they could become more prepared. And then, of course, I directed them to our website, because why just listen to somebody tell them and hear it secondhand whenever they could come themselves and learn this stuff? And I think that's something very important to bring up right at the very beginning of this. Well, yes, you have access to the website and you have access to all the trainings, and sure, you could give someone your login if that's what you chose to do, but we're not Netflix, and we're certainly not awash in money like them, so we prefer you didn't do that. But 2, if you're just a secondhand giver of knowledge, then you're not really empowering that person to have that level of autonomy to take care of themselves. And then they're having to come to you for answers. And it reminds me, whenever I think about people always having to come to me for answers for stuff, it's the give a man, teach a man, teach a man fish thing. Let me say that. Blah, 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 blah. Not going to cut that out. I'm going to let y'all hear all those errors and all the right ways. We've all heard, if you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. If you teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. I like to take it a step further, and I like to teach a human to teach other humans to fish, because that's how you save society. So we don't just want to give somebody knowledge, nor do we just want to teach them how to do it, but we want to show them it in such a way that they can then go share the knowledge outward. And the more of you who get behind the idea of growing AmCon at a local level, the grassroots, which is something we talk about over here a lot within the admin world, is like we want that grassroots. And we can't be everywhere. We can't be at every gun show. We can't be at every farmer's market. We can't be at all of the different community events that you could possibly be attending. But when you go to these things, you have an opportunity to share with people your knowledge, to be a community leader. And I'd like to discuss some of the ways that you could begin to do that, perhaps a little bit more effectively than you've currently been doing it, or give you ideas on why you should start doing it. And the first one we're going to start off with is food and water storage. So some of the talking points that you could bring up here would be ensuring basic needs during a storm, preparing for unexpected disruptions, and community support in times of crisis. So I've come up with some sort of test ones here that I've noticed that I share with other people whenever I discuss American contingency. And so I've been taking a lot of notes over the last few months on some of the things that I've said, and I've compiled them into what I'm getting ready to tell you guys now. So let's say we're doing the ensuring basic needs during a storm. So one of the easy ways to bring this up would simply be find a storm that recently happened in your region, or it could be completely across the country. And it'd be like, man, did you see that huge hurricane that just hit Houston recently? I was like, I wonder what those people did to prepare their homes for that hurricane. I mean, do you think they had enough water and food, to not have electricity for 3 or 4 days? And potentially, for some of those people couldn't even leave their houses for a week. And so this is a really great way of bringing it up to, let's just call them neighbor. It could be your partner, it could be your kids, it could be your best friend, it could be your brother or sister, but let's just say neighbor for the sake of using one term throughout the entire scope of this show. So a way that you could bring it up, and something that I have actually said, would be like, hey, after that last storm, man, I realized how crucial it is to have a good stock of food and water at home. Do you think you have enough supplies to last if another storm like this hits? Very easy, very smooth, doesn't attack the person. Hey, you got enough water and food for like a week? Because if you come knocking on my door, you're going to be met with my buddies Smith and Wesson. All right, just reel it in a little bit. If you really think that that's how you're going to greet your neighbor 2 days after a hurricane whenever they're dehydrated, we might want to discuss other ways of being amenable to people in need. And I get that we don't necessarily want to be sharing our rations if we have purposely prepared our rations. And this is why sharing these kind of topics with people ahead of time is so important. You can share how AmCon members focus on storing at least 2 weeks, 3 weeks worth of water, non-perishable foods, because this is the kind of stuff that's important. And you can bring it up as simple as, hey, did you hear about that storm? Did you hear about that thing? Boy, did you hear about that calamity? Because there's calamities everywhere all the time. It won't be too hard to find one. There's probably happening one right now as I am literally recording this podcast. The beauty of it is, in order to bring it up, you only have to say, man, did you hear about that storm that happened a couple counties over? Do you think you have enough food and water? Because I hear some of those people didn't have electricity for like 3 or 4 days. Like, what would you do if that happened? It's very simple. It's polite. It's a soft entry into just bringing up the idea of being prepared. Another one, unexpected disruptions. And this could be disruptions in electricity. It could be disruptions in, let's say, food distribution, any kind of disruption. Something as simple as saying, you never know when the next big storm might hit. It's always good to have some emergency food and water supplies. Have you thought about what you need? I mean, you've got a wife, your sister lives at the house with you with her 2 kids, you've got your 2 kids, plus you guys have like 4 dogs. And that's a lot of mouths to feed. What are you doing for your stockpiles? I'm just curious, because I know, maybe I could help you out with some of the things I've been doing. It's as simple as calling attention to what it is that they are responsible for. And really what finally got me to shoot this episode of AmCon is that the other day, I think I was in the Southeast region, which is my home region because I live in Alabama. And I remember writing something in there about toward versus away and knowing where somebody is coming from in order to speak to them, to the needs that they might have if there was a disaster. And in case you've never heard of toward versus away, it works like this. Some people are toward driven and some people are away driven. So if you go to work because you don't want to be starving, living in a van down by the river, then that's away energy. I go to work so I'm not living in a van down by the river eating muskrat with the hobos passing through on the local rail line. That is an away energy. I'm not saying eating muskrat with hobos wouldn't be one hell of an adventure, but do I want it to be my everyday life? Probably not. No, definitely not. I'll just take the word probably right out of there. If it is a toward energy, it's I go to work so that I can be financially stable, I can take my family on really cool trips, and I will feel that I've got enough money saved up when retirement comes, right? That would be a toward energy. I'm going toward a positive versus trying to get away from a negative. And if your next door neighbor is more away driven and you say, man, you've got like 8 mouths plus 4 pets to feed over there. That's like 12 different heartbeats you're in charge of. Do you have enough food and water for all of that? And they can be like, oh man, I do not have enough food and water to feed all those mouths for more than 2 or 3 days. Interesting. What do you know about getting food prepared or stored or water stored in your garage or your basement or your attic? Because one of the things that I've noticed whenever people want to bring up anything that they have a lot of knowledge about, there's a tendency to want to jump straight into advice mode. I'm going to want you to reel that in a little bit. Instead of going into straight to advice mode, you can bring it up, listen for their answer, and then ask them, well, what do you know about? What have you already tried? What have you already done? Get an idea of the scope of their participation in the preparedness world. Because if they say, yeah, man, that is 12 heartbeats to feed. Man, I don't really know if I've thought about that. Well, let me tell you what I've done. And then you start rattling off all your stuff. It could come off as overwhelming because you just rattled off a ton of stuff and they didn't even think about a bathtub condom, right? They don't even have water saved up to just put in the back of the toilet to get the darn thing to flush if the water is hooked up to some kind of system that doesn't continuously flow to the house in case of electricity being out. And I have lived in houses where that's been the case. You might overwhelm them with so much information, or you might talk down to them inadvertently because they've already tried some of these things. And so rather than getting any kind of feedback from them, you immediately just assume that you know more and they've done nothing. And maybe in the past they've done a lot, but in this new house, they've done nothing. And it could be because of finances or storage capabilities, or perhaps somebody's giving them pushback in their house because in the last place they lived in, they had the garage so stuffed full of provisions that it looked like, they were hoarders. So you want to beware of overwhelming them. You want to beware of talking down to them. And of course, just another one to be really friendly about is by asking them what they've done or what they've tried or what their experience with getting preparations together in the past. It shows curiosity, and you want to show a curiosity and a desire to learn about them. And you will be amazed how much you can learn from people who think that they don't have much to teach because they have all experienced something. So you want to be mindful of the overwhelm. You want to be mindful of the talking down. You want to be mindful of curiosity toward them. And of course, just realizing that a simple question of what have you done, what have you tried, what have you experienced opens up a whole nother beautiful conversation that can come from this. So far we have discussed, hey, after the last storm, what do you think you've got prepared? Do you have enough supplies? Another one is, have you thought about what you might need? And then, of course, the community support, which is, during emergencies, I'm involved with this amazing organization called AmCon, and we really help people pull everything together. We have a network of people you can absolutely rely upon when it comes to trainings and knowledge. And, there's some of them not too far away from the house here that we're able to meet up. And, if somebody's in despair, we can come help them, and likewise, they would come help us. And this really highlights how the American contingency community fosters this network where we share resources and support for one another. And does that mean we're going to actually share water 3 days after the hurricane? I don't know. To each his own, subjective to your perspective on what's happening in the moment. But certainly, if we're helping everybody around us get prepared, and all of a sudden everybody decided to, come to your compound and they all brought their provisions with them, boy, you'd be sitting pretty. And that's what we're looking to do, is we're looking to help get everybody prepared. And then if you all can meet up in the same place, because it's going to be a week without electricity and everything in town shut down, at least you could, brave all that stuff out together with more than enough provisions for everybody to be able to be comfortable. And as Mike Lott once said when he came on the show, provisions don't just mean rice and beans, because that sounds like a really horrible thing to only have to eat for a week. And so just be mindful that it can also mean comfort foods. Let's talk about home security. Do you bring up how people might want to secure their home against storm damage, or protecting their family and belongings, or perhaps even a community watch program? And I just got done, did I just get done writing it or posting it? I think I may have just got done writing a blog post about the neighborhood watch. Yeah, it'll come out in August, and I think it's under community leadership. But if you're a member, just keep an eye out for the blogs. And by the way, if you're not following me on our members site, make sure you're doing that. You'll be able to see all the posts that I make up about the blogs or the podcast or whatever else is coming out. So if you're not following me, I won't show up in your feed. So go ahead and do that while you're thinking about it. So home security. How can you discuss with somebody about securing their home against storm damage? Something like this. I was thinking about how to better secure my home against storm damage. What steps have you taken to make sure your place is safe? This is a great conversation, seriously, for anyone in a hurricane zone. Like, if you have not had this conversation with your neighbors to the left, right, and across the cul-de-sac, or however your neighborhood streets have been constructed, seriously, get on this. I mean, any house that you can see from your front porch, you should be having a conversation with. And here in a moment, when I discuss the Community Watch program, and I think specifically I covered this in the August blog about this, is a Community Watch program is an excellent opportunity to discuss preparedness. So by asking somebody what they've done to prepare their home against storm damage, you get to bring up windows, doors, roofs, and we have a lot of information and a lot of people in these regions with experience and with knowledge that they could share about this. Yes, you can go to YouTube all you want. We are not stupid over here. We realize that the internet is a vestibule of information. What it lacks is the clarity that community support can bring. Trust me, as somebody who just got done dealing with their water heater breaking, it would have been a lot better if I would have already had in place some people I could have talked to about this, instead of going and trying to scrounge for information at the last second as my water heater is leaking all over my garage. So you want to have the community support in place ahead of time before you need it. It's sort of like, when's the best time to plant a tree before you need the shade? When's the best time to drink water before you're thirsty? When's the best time to fix your roof during sunshine? It's the same thing with building a support system. The best time to do that is when you don't need it. And the best time to discuss how to prepare your home against storm damage, whatever storm your community might bring to you, is way before the storm is coming. If the hurricane's 4 days away, you're already going to join the mobs at the big box stores trying to buy plywood to put over your windows. I don't know if I brought up this idea to you guys, or maybe it was just to another individual in the AmCon community, but I had always thought that if I lived in a very hurricane-prone area, it would be very wise to discuss with everybody on my street about co-renting a storage facility, and that being where we put all of our plywood and our home safety devices that would allow us, when the hurricane is a couple days away. Now we've already pre-purchased all the plywood, all the things that we would want to put over our home to secure windows and doorways, the whole deal, right? Well, if you get enough people together, you could rent a pretty good sized storage facility, and everybody could pitch in, what would they be? Maybe $120 for a month. Well, if you had, 12 people, everybody takes on a month, and then that stuff is always stored in that storage facility. So when the storms start to come, everybody could go out there, borrow a few trucks. I'm sure 10, 12 people, somebody would have a truck in that. And now you go out there, you get all the supplies, you label them all for whose houses they are, you keep all of the screws and stuff duct taped to the wood, so all the supplies you need are right there. And if you've done this once, then you would already have pre-drilled holes around your windows and everything. And literally as a community, everybody goes from one house to the next. You ever seen a video how Amish people build a barn? I saw a time-lapse video once where I swear they built a barn in like a day. And this isn't like a tiny barn. This was like a barn that would cover like a football field. And they built it during a day. Like you could see the work all stop for the 1 hour they had lunch. And then they went back to building this barn. It was phenomenal. And whether it just was made to look like it all happened in a day, either way, the Amish know how to build a barn. You could do that similar kind of methodology with everybody on your street. We go to each house and we just knock out the houses, and in one day everybody's home is secure and prepared. Another good thing to be bringing up would something like this. What do you do to keep your home and family safe during severe weather? It's something I've really been focused on lately, and I'd love to hear any tips that you might have. This puts the ball in their court. One, you ask them what they have been doing, what they have done, or what they've thought about, and it also asks them, well, I've been focused on this a lot lately, and I'd love to know anything that you've done or thought about this topic. It puts them in a place where they get to share with you now. So not only have you shown curiosity to them, but you've also put them in a state where they get to be the leader. They get to talk about the things that they're doing, the things that they've learned. And people love that. I mean, people generally love the sound of their own voice. I clearly do. I run multiple podcasts, and I'm a professional speaker. So obviously, I am not opposed to my own voice, but I am also a counselor in training. I do life coaching, business coaching, and addiction recovery coaching. So I know how powerful asking a question and then being quiet while somebody answers it, and not waiting for my turn to talk, but actively listening with open ears and an open heart, sending open-ended questions, giving people affirmations whenever they say things to you. I should do a whole episode on this. Repeating back what they say, which is like a reflective statement, and then of course you can summarize, and then you ask another question. And it's really a great way of just inviting somebody to feel heard. When you ask somebody what they're doing to prepare their home against inclement weather, this gives them an opportunity to share with you. And then likewise, when they're done sharing with you, you'd be like, that's really interesting. That makes me think of this one thing I've been doing. And now you're sharing ideas, and inevitably it'll be like, man, you seem to know a lot about this stuff. Where have you been learning about it? Oh, let me tell you about American Contingency. I don't know what I would do without the community support that I have found there, or without the trainings, or whatever your favorite reason for being an AmCon member is. Now you have the opportunity to bring it up in a way that isn't like knock, knock, knock. Hey, Bob, let me tell you about American Contingency and why you should join one of the most important preparedness community networks I've ever been a part of. Right? We're not asking you to go door-to-door salesman here on this thing. We're not, you're not selling, pest control or, high-speed internet. You're offering people an opportunity to grow themselves through the shared resources that we have created as a community, and you are one of those resources. As much as we can put out podcasts and blogs and do all this other stuff, you are our best advertising. You are the best networking that we have. And if you're finding value in it, then we would ask that you go and share that. I'll tell you, the amount of awesome conversations that have been started, because I tell people that I work with and am a member of American Contingency, is been profound. It's been really awesome. In fact, I went through that. I got myself verified and vetted, is what we call it here at AmCon. I finally went through that process, because I always worked for AmCon, so I didn't really think I needed to go through the vetting process, but I wanted to see what the whole thing was like. And the little answer sheet thing took like 5 minutes to fill out, and I think it took about a month for me to get the information back, but I received an email today that I am vetted, and now I will get my blue check mark. And the blue check mark is important because a lot of our members are not going to invite you over to their homes and into their personal lives and spaces without that blue check mark. We're not doing this so we can find out information about you. We're not nefarious. We have no intentions or want, need, or desire to screw with your personal information. It's done so in a way that we know that anybody with a blue check has had a background check, which allows us to just know that if you had a criminal record or anything in your background that was nefarious, we would know about it and we could determine whether you would stay in AmCon or not, because we want all of our members to feel safe when they meet other members. This is something that you're not going to get from many organizations that would go through a vetting process. And so I recently went through the vetting process, and I'm really happy at how smooth that whole thing went. So if you're a member and you haven't been vetted, do that. It's like $27. And if you're thinking about becoming a member and you are worried that you're going to come across a bunch of people who don't have your best intentions at heart, I can assure you that we have done everything in our power to make sure that our members are trustworthy and have integrity and gratitude and come from a place of a desire to help other people grow and not to be nefarious in any way or shape or form. And I'm going to wrap up the show here because it's already past 30 minutes, and I do have a tendency to go off on some diatribes here and there. And I believe that I'm very mindful to speak value into the microphone, and the things that I say are just ways that I've experienced American contingency and discussing it with people. And by all means, if there's a point you'd like to make about my rambling madman moments or just the fact that maybe there's a topic that you would really like covered, social media at americancontingency.com is my email address. Again, that's social media at americancontingency.com, and you'll be able to reach out directly to me. If you're a member, then you can obviously just go into the member portal, follow me. I'm Jesse Mogul. I tell you my name over and over and over again on the show. Heck, I've got my own website even, so you can see pictures of me if you like. It's jessemogul.com. I'm not hard to find, and you can always reach out to me, and if you have any questions or concerns, or you would like to know how you might be able to request a particular topic covered, or if you'd like to come on the show and discuss your membership with American Contingency and how much that we've helped you and how much you've grown through the process of being a member of AmCon, I'd love to have that conversation and see if we couldn't get you in the books and over here onto the podcast. So let's close up this episode with the community watch programs. One of the coolest things that has come from learning more about Community Watch, talking to people in my cul-de-sac about Community Watch. When we first moved into the house, a random car pulled in front of our house. Not directly in front of our house, but really more like between me and the neighbor's house. So it was just sort of a little off to the right of center. So it would have been like in that let's see, that's east, north, south, east. No, it would have been in the northeastern corner. Anyways, that's not important. What's important is what transpired inside this car. And 3 individuals that were male and 1 individual that was female parked the car and then stayed in the car and fornicated. And it was disgusting, to say the least. And then they left their fornication protective devices. I'm being as polite in his, like, I'm trying. I hope you're getting if you're getting the drift of this, but I'm trying to be as polite as I possibly can as I discuss this very just grotesque act that happened in a car in front of my house. So anyways, 3 males, 1 female, fornication. Then their fornication protective devices were thrown out of their car onto our lawn. And then our neighbors walking their dog later on that day came across these protective devices and knocked on our door and said, hey, you got some protective devices just strewn about your lawn. And stepson went out there, and luckily he was smart enough to get like multiple Walmart bags and pick them up and dispose of them. But not before he showed me them, and I was like, okay, this is disgusting beyond disgusting. And but one of the things the neighbor had said was, this isn't the first time we've seen these on somebody's lawn. This is actually the 3rd time we've come across these. And now this vehicle has not come back, and we've heard nobody else. And we've got on the Facebook, group for this within Facebook. And this Facebook group it's a bunch of, the kind of people who are always staring out their window, talking about what the other neighbors are doing. And while I'm not always the biggest fan of, that kind of snooping and, getting up there and griping about somebody putting their big haul garbage out 4 days after the big haul garbage just came. So now we got to look at this person's big haul garbage for 26 days, which is super annoying. Like, they just came 4 days ago. Could you not just leave your big haul garbage in your garage for a period of time until it's at least closer? But these people, they get on the Facebook group and they complain about that stuff. But it's an awesome opportunity to realize that there's already a community watch program going on in this neighborhood per se. And so as I've discussed this with the neighbors in my cul-de-sac about being mindful of a car that might stop, because we have kids everywhere. And luckily, we're the ones, adults, came across those protective devices before a kid did, because a kid may not understand what they're looking at. They might pick it up. And we know the kinds of disease that can go on inside of a fornication protective device. So luckily, only adults came across it. But as I was talking to some of the neighbors about why we should be more mindful of our community watch program and what we're keeping an eye on, I brought this story up. And people who were sort of like, yeah, I don't really know if I want to meet, every week or have conversations or get in a text thread about what we're seeing on the street. I'm like, really? Have you heard about the protection devices that we found in our lawn? And all of a sudden, every single parent was like, so here's my number. I would love to be involved in a text thread. And I think it's really important that we all pay attention to what's going on our streets. So again, toward versus away. This person did not want to deal with being involved in a text thread about what's going on the streets until they found out that people were fornicating in a car and throwing their protective devices on lawns. Then all of a sudden, their 7-year-old safety flashed before their very eyes, and now they were very much in desiring a community watch program. So you can utilize that toward versus away of, hey, have you ever thought about your kid's safety? Or, your dog runs around in the street once in a while. What happens if it gets a couple streets over? Do you want people that don't know your dog is nice and friendly and safe to be calling animal control? Or, what if they see it running in the street and potentially getting, hit by a car? Wouldn't you want somebody to know that that's your dog and, that they could come bring it back to your house? So these are awesome ways of bringing up a community watch program. And through community watch programs, we get to discuss, well, hey, since we're discussing our community and keeping an eye on the streets, let's talk about our homes. And, recently some tornadoes came within like 7 miles of our house. What do you guys do to prepare for a tornado? And what if we lose electricity? Or what if we find out one's coming towards us? Have you really prepared a place in your house for your family to hide and seek shelter in case a tornado is coming down our street? Obviously, look, guys, we get it. If a tornado just literally comes right into the middle of your home, that does not bode well for your future. But at the same time, we don't just want to be sitting on our upstairs couch watching TV like my girlfriend and I were that day that those storms were only 7 or 8 miles away. We were able to text Tom, and Tom was getting a lot of his information through the American Contingency Information Network, through the people we have watching weather, and of course all the apps that he has. So there's probably people in American Contingency who are very mindful of weather patterns around you. Being a member will allow you to talk to them about what they're seeing, and starting a community watch program will give you an opportunity to discuss with other people about the resources they utilize to make sure that they know where the storms are. Because you might very well have somebody who is very good at being prepared in your neighborhood, and it might behoove us to have them as a member. So a simple sentence like, we should start talking about a neighborhood watch program. Let's just to keep an eye on each other's homes during and after storms, in case we start seeing strangers walking up and down the street. Have you ever been involved in something like that, a neighborhood watch program? Simple question. No, I never really have. I mean, do you have any experience? Have you ever lived in a neighborhood that had one, but maybe you just weren't involved? Because maybe they have a negative attitude about neighborhood watch programs, or maybe they have no attitude at all, or they have a very good one. But bringing it up and then asking them, well, have you ever done one? Has everyone ever been in your neighborhood? What experience do you have with that? Simply finding out where they're at, be like, well, if is that something you'd be curious into discussing? We could have everybody over at the backyard. We could all throw some burgers and dogs on the Barbie, play a little cornhole, listen to some cool music, and just discuss how we can help each other, make sure that we stay safe, because we're all going to go on vacations eventually. And wouldn't you rather, knowing that you've got people in your neighborhood keeping an eye on your place, so that some rando who knocks on the door offering pest control doesn't notice that the house is empty, and then, calls up his buddies, and next thing you know, your house is getting shattered at 2 in the morning. So these are engagement strategies where you can mention how AmCon helps people set up and support community watch programs for their own security, for their own defense. And we do. We have, we've got training blogs about this. We've got people who are having conversations about it in various groups, home safety, home defense. There's so many different ways that you can learn about this. In fact, there's a whole website that's dedicated to starting up your own community watch, and then you can bring in the American contingency spin on it, where it's also building that community support. So it's not just, hey, stop having your garbage out in front of the street 3 weeks before it's going to get picked up, to, hey, the other day I noticed that there were some people walking around the neighborhood with flyers in their hands, but they were also peering into windows. Just because they're wearing a shirt that makes it look like they work for some kind of professional company doesn't mean that they're still not scoping out houses in the neighborhood, looking for those ones that, might have somebody on vacation. Back in the day, we all got newspapers, and you'd know somebody was on vacation if they had 7 newspapers piled up on their front stoop. Newspapers have since disappeared, and people don't get them that way anymore, so that's not necessarily going to be a telltale sign. But there's other signs that, might be visible. Did you realize that if somebody has a front doorknob that has all doorknobs have a surface to them, but a very interesting telltale sign, especially during pollen season, that nobody is home and hasn't been home for multiple days, is the fact that there will be pollen residue built up on the doorknob or dust. So, think about that whenever you think, oh no, my house looks like somebody's lived in it. I've got lights going off and on timers. That's great and all. If your doorknob shows obvious signs of not having been touched in multiple days, it's not going to take somebody who really wants to get in your home a PhD to figure out that you're not home right now. So that was one that I actually thought of on my own the other day, because I had noticed that my back doorknob, which we had not gone out of in a few days because of the concrete curing, when I went out there and went to open it up, I noticed that I had dust all over my hand. And I was like, interesting. That was just from 3 days of not turning that doorknob. That much dust formed on the doorknob. So I thought, if I was a thief and I noticed that there was this much dust on the front doorknob, and then I checked the back doorknob, it might be pretty obvious to me that nobody's been home in a few days. Not a bad house to break into if I'm looking to do something nefarious. Okay, that's 45 minutes. I've gotten about 1/4 of the way through these notes. There's still so much more, and we're going to continue this conversation. And seriously, when I say I've got notes, I got notes for days. I have been preparing this episode for a couple months now, and I'll just start dropping some of this knowledge on you as we go along. If you would like to be a member of American Contingency, you can go to americancontingency.com and look into that. If you'd like to come on the podcast and you are a member and discuss some of the things that you've learned. I've got some amazing members that are going to be coming on here soon from the Northeast region. Specifically, I believe in Ohio is where they all live. Can't wait to have them on. And so some of the things we've discussed today, Neighborhood Watch Program, how to conversate with people about American Contingency, how to not overwhelm people, to show curiosity, not to talk down to people, and simple ways of doing that. And this stretches way beyond just American Contingency, y'all. Anytime you want to show curiosity in somebody's life, simple, well, what experience do you have in that? What have you done? What have you not done? Those kinds of questions allow people to realize that you're curious and you want to hear them talk, and it gives them an opportunity to share with you, and allow them to share in such a way that you're not just waiting for your turn to speak, but follow up with a reflective question. Summarize the things that they've said. Maybe you tie it in a little bit to your life, but come back with a follow-up question, and you'll find that people will be way more amenable to you sharing with them when you've provided space for them to share. And we all have that friend who just, you could be like, oh my goodness, I went to this concert and I had this amazing experience. And they're like, oh my God, that reminds me when I went to a concert and I had a great experience. And let me tell you all about that. And you're like, Okay, well, you just yanked the talking stick out of my hand. And then no matter what subject you bring up, they are more than happy to yank the talking stick out of your hand. We do have those friends. And if you choose to stay friends with them, then I guess it's just about accepting the fact that they really, really, really want you to hear what they have to say. They may not give two damns about what you have to say, but that might be the very kind of person who needs to know about American contingency the most. And you definitely don't want that person knocking on your door needing provisions, because you really want to spend 3 or 4 days without electricity with such a self-absorbed person that they aren't even willing to allow you to share a story before they tell you 10. So just think about that, my friends. This is like part 1 of what could become literally a multi-part series. I've always respected and honored your time, so thanks for letting me go 20 minutes over with y'all. So when you are ready to prepare, to grow, to share, by building the skills, the network, and the confidence to be ready for whatever comes next, join us at AmericanContingency.com. We're here when you're ready. We'll keep the fire going so you can find your way. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.